So, thanks for joining me. I am your friendly neighborhood instructor, Coach Culbertson, broadcasting to you live from the beautiful city of Chicago, even though I'm from Austin, Texas. So I happen to be here in Chicago this week, bringing you some fun and exciting new stuff in Azure. So let me talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in this program, because this is kind of a different thing for most of you. This is going to be a monthly program, by the way, and we're going to fill it chock full of good, exciting, and usable stuff for you and your technicians. So thanks for joining us. Just a real quick look. We're going to be reviewing Azure updates and changes. We're going to be discussing, we're doing some demo training. And so if you'd like to get in on this, you can subscribe by calling over to our main shop directions, or you can email sales@directionstraining, or you can just give your account executive a call and they can hook you right up. All right. So, because we all know that Azure changes literally by the week, and it is a ride to keep on track of all of this stuff, right? So we're going to help you out and get you the big top highlights every month for the last 30 days. That's going to be the focus. And I should mention too that the focus of this particular program is on Azure administrators. So the development side is going to be something that's going to fall outside of our scope for this particular program, although if this program goes well and a lot of folks request it, we may look at doing a development monthly as well. So that's just a quick note about the things that we're doing with this, and because we know that, and we've talked to so many people, they want to get into Azure, they want to dig into all the superpowers that it has, but it's a trick, you know, just to keep up with all of the changes that are happening and all the new toys that they're constantly bringing in. And it's a really exciting time, by the way, to be in IT, because we are getting the cutting edge literally every day in Azure. And so that's partially why I've dedicated the last quarter of my career, literally the last 5 years, to doing Azure. You know? So it's been a fun ride. So here's our agenda, what we're going to be doing, and we are going to be tailoring and shifting the program based upon your feedback as we continue to do more episodes each and every month. And so we do want to hear from you. We want to hear what you like, what you want to see, and that will help us craft a program that you're going to love and to dig. So we're going to kick off with some new fun and exciting highlights that have happened in the last 30 days within the news. Then I'm going to bounce over and do a short demo for you based on typically a problem that a lot of folks have. And so we'll seeing a variety of different technologies and different techniques in the new school demos. Then in Ask the Professor, we'll be taking questions that have been submitted by you prior to the broadcast, by the way. All right, so we're not going to take live questions on the broadcast about brand new things, because I like to have time to research this stuff and give you definitive and strong answers. So at any time, you may feel free to use the chat box as much as you like. And just so you know, if there's questions that I can answer immediately, I will, absolutely. If there's questions that I have to table, then you might hear back from me later on on that particular question. All right. Then we're going to be doing some tips and tricks, and tips and tricks is where I'm going to be delivering you some fun resources, typically free resources that are available and out there that you just might not know about, you know. So. And then last but not least, I'll tell you about the after party at the end of the show. All right. So let's go ahead and let's get started with In the News. I need to have a little music there, don't I? I'm going to make myself a note of that right now. So we need to have some music in here for this particular section, right? So in the news, first of all, Ethereum on Azure. Now, a lot of you have heard about blockchain, right? Because blockchain is the underlying technology around Bitcoin that has been rocketing and rolling all around the technology world, and there's some big to-dos going on about it. You know, I mean, blockchain having taken the spotlight in, with Bitcoin going up and down as crazy as it has, and now we're starting to see Starbucks and the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange get into and start to bring Bitcoin into mainstream. So, for those of you who are looking at possibly doing blockchain stuff in the future, Ethereum now has the ability to be on Azure. Let me flip over here and share my screen here with you real fast. And by the way, as I provide links and as I provide resources, I will be tossing them into the chat box for you all along the way, so you can have access and resources to review after class as well. So, so Ethereum is a blockchain, is a type of blockchain network, and it's very time-consuming to set up. But in Azure, you can now set up Ethereum with just a couple of clicks. And so it's a very exciting, now the Ethereum is, by the way, and blockchain stuff has been on Azure for a while. But this brings us into kind of a new era of ease and use for it. So there's no actual charges for the Ethereum software running. You're actually only charged for the underlying virtual machine time. So that can also help speed your development and your deployment if you're looking to do Ethereum stuff on blockchain. And then also, I thought that, you know, since some folks are like, blockchain? What's blockchain? What is this blockchain you speak of? Cool. I provided you a quick reference here to the blockchain page over here on Microsoft's Azure pages here as well. So, so for those of you who are in the know about blockchain, you have some new fun and exciting resources there for you. For those of you who are new to blockchain, then maybe we'll get you up to date with it, you know, and get you investigating that, because it's really blockchain and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and all these things. Blockchain is really kind of poised to become the next kind of the Internet 3.0, you know, and it's a really exciting technology that's been around for a little while, but we're now starting to see where it can really fit in. And so it's exciting to see that show up on Azure. Next up, let's talk about Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell is a lot of folks who've been drifting into Azure have been living in the Linux side of the universe. And so, of course, a lot of you know that Linux typically equals command line. Not to say that there aren't graphical user interfaces for it, but the reality is that most Linux folk love and live in that command line. Well, Azure has been loving Linux for a long while, right? So you can spin up Linux just as easily on Azure as you can on any other cloud platform. And so now we've taken the Cloud Shell to a new level. There's a new Monaco text editor. Now, for those of you who are maybe not as comfortable with the command line just yet, I think you're going to really dig this, okay? Because this is, I think, will help speed your way into working with files in cloud, and specifically in the Cloud Shell. So let me go ahead and flip over to back here to my screen, and let me just show you what I'm talking about, because I think that you're going to dig it. And for those, some of you, you might not know this, but there is, if you go over to shell.azure.com, right, shell.azure.com, this is a command line interface into your Azure environment. And so we actually have a choice of two shells, by the way. You can either use and run the traditional bash shell, or you can also do PowerShell. So for those of you who are more Microsoftian and have been living in PowerShell for the last, well, let's say 10 years or so, cool, we got you covered on either one of these. And by the way, what I'm going to show you actually works in either bash or PowerShell. All right, so that's kind of nice and kind of fun. So let me go ahead and show you real fast. I mean, this looks very familiar to those of you who have been living in Linux land, and so you can, you know, run all your basic bash shell commands. Sure, I actually come from a Linux background. I actually did Linux back in the 90s, way back when, right before the dot-bomb boom. I was right there in the middle of it. It was a good time had by all, until we all lost all of our money. But anyway, so the fun thing with this is that you can just simply type code and a dot, and that's going to activate the Monaco text editor for you. And whatever directory you happen to be in, I'm just in the top of a directory, just as a quick demo here. But whatever directory you happen to be in, that's what you will be bounced into. And then, of course, from here you can click on the different files, and we can edit these files here. Now, this is not necessarily something that you're probably going to pop open in like a Chromebook and write the next big application for, right? I mean, this is primarily for configuration and to tweak your configs and things of that nature. So run bash shells and to tweak scripts and things like that. So it's going to, for those of you who are looking for something to, looks like more like a Visual Studio kind of environment here, that's not really what this is, okay? But it is really handy, really nice, and like everything, everybody digs in and starts to use this kind of stuff in their own kind of fashion anyway, right? So over here in the very upper right-hand corner, there's a little bitty menu where you can save, close the editor, open other files, and even pop over the little command palette so you can see the keyboard shortcuts as well. So if you're not familiar with Monaco as a text editor, cool. We can get you a little bit more familiar with the commands and how it's utilized there. So that's kind of fun. It's kind of neat. All right, kind of neat. And then I can go ahead and just close the editor, pop right back into my Cloud Shell, and away I go. Okay. So there we have it, just as a quick crash course in Cloud Shell and the new Monaco release. A lot of folks, again, who are not as savvy with command line have really been kind of excited about that, because it gives them a little bit more of a graphical interface to help ease their transition into command line interface. So there we have it for the Monaco update. And again, by the way, that's available to you right now. That's not no, it's not coming. It's this stuff we're talking about at the moment. This is all right here, right now. Been available to you for the last 30 days or so. Well, some of the stuff is actually brand new even this week. All right, so next up is Azure Management Groups for multiple subscriptions. So Azure Management Groups are, a lot of folks have the issue of working with multiple subscriptions, right? And so if you want to lock down and be able to limit what folks can do across multiple subscriptions, Azure Management Groups are the way to make that happen. They're pretty easy to work with, pretty easy to create right inside of the portal, but they're the tools that are available for that really can help you across multiple. If you have multiple subscriptions across multiple divisions, geographies, departments, projects, whatever it may be, and you want to lock it down with a policy across multiple subscriptions, this is really the way to go. So there's that. All right, so next up on our news, what's generally available is the Linux on app service environments. Now, app service environments are, of course, the platform as a service solution items that are out there. They've been around for a long while, but Linux is now starring right alongside of Windows and Docker in the app service environment. And it's really easy to implement, by the way, Linux applications. Let me just go back here and share them out my screen here. I'm going to be bouncing into Azure. And so if you go ahead and create a resource, there's a couple different items. We're going to do just a simple web app here on ours, and we're going to give it a quick name. Here, I'm going to call this Alien Demo. There we go. And I'm going to jump down here. I'm going to select Linux from my operating system selections, and I'm going to go here into my app service plan. I'm going to create a new app service plan just so you can see the options that are available inside of here. Flip this open. Now, something that's fun about the new Linux options is that the B1 basic subscription level, the price and the power buy what we're looking at here, the B1 Core is for Linux is free for the first 30 days. So you can punch around on it, play around on it with no cost. I think that's cool. I think that's fun. So you can load up some code and load up your legacy code into a web app based in Linux to make sure it's not going to blow up in your face, right? So that could be pretty fun and pretty neat from the standpoint of, hey, there's no risk to try this out for the first 30 days. Right? Okay, so anyway, so just want to give you a quickie glance at that. So implementing Linux in an app service environment, really fast, really easy to do. All right, so moving along here, loading back up the slides, there we go. Another item that's generally available is the Azure File Sync. This is a wickedly cool new item. I've got actually a little video here to show you what this is all about.
So you've got files, lots of them, all piling up in scattered islands of data that are difficult to manage, back up, and recover. You can consolidate your files in the cloud, but on-premises users and apps might struggle with the slower access times. That's why we created Azure File Sync. Now you can centralize your files in Azure and then install Azure File Sync on a Windows server to provide fast local access to your cloud files. Your local servers and Azure are now constantly syncing. No more scattered islands of data. One centralized location for your files with multi-site access powered by fast local caches. If a server becomes unavailable, no problem. Just install Azure File Sync on another server or VM, and your users and apps can access the files again within minutes. With integrated cloud backups, your local backup solution might be ready for retirement. And if you want to move an app to the cloud, your app can access the Azure File Share just like a file share in your network. Azure File Sync, the benefits of consolidating your files in the cloud, matched with the performance of a local file server. To get started, head here.
So that's fun, right? That's a fun, neat thing, and that's very easily accessed, by the way, right inside of your portal. While you can code it, you don't have to. So for those of you who prefer a graphical user interface, cool, we got you covered on that. So you can actually bounce over and investigate that right in your portal right now. Managed disk migrations. Yes, managed disks. If you haven't heard about managed disks, by the way, for your virtual machines that are hanging out in Azure, you can manage your disks if you'd like to, or you can let Azure manage them and wrestle them down. And so managed disks are not a new thing, by the way, but if you'd like to have Azure manage them, if you have some solutions that are out there already, some virtual machines, and you would like to, let me bounce over here into Azure. And I'm going to zoom in here a little bit to help sure everybody can see this a little bit easily. So I've got this little guy here, Alien Special 1. Now, by the way, if you are wondering, why does he name everything Alien? Well, it's kind of a little technique that I use to mark all of my demo machines as something that that I will discard later on. So that's my nomenclature. And also, I think aliens are cool. I think I like the idea of aliens from outer space. So, all right. So, Alien Special 1, you see here, is not using managed disks. I set it up exactly for this particular purpose, and I can migrate to managed disks right now by clicking on the little arrow button. Now, a couple of quick notes. When you do this, all right, managed disks do cost a few extra dollars. Okay, so always, before you spin up or make any major changes about your stuff in Azure, always consult the Azure calculator, right? Always double check to see what it's going to cost you, so that way you're not caught off guard by your bill at the end of the month. Now, when you migrate to managed disks, it's not a reversible thing, okay? So unmanaged disks can no longer be attached to this particular machine. This is a permanent thing. So if you wanted to go back to non-managed disks, what you would have to do is you would have to extract the data off that disk, or disconnect that disk, destroy that virtual machine, or probably spin up a new one before you destroy the old one, right? That would be a great idea. So before you destroy the old one, spin up a new one, attach a copy of an unmanaged disk with all the data that you need, then destroy the old one. Okay? Now, in all honesty, that's in Azure land, that's not that big a deal. It's not a process that's going to take you hours upon hours upon hours. But certainly, you're going to have to plan for that kind of thing to happen. So make sure you want to do this. All right, make sure you want to migrate to managed disks, because there are a variety of advantages to managed disks, and not the least of which, of course, is just one less thing you got to worry about. Right? And that by itself might be worth the price of admission to managed disks. So I can go ahead and click on migrate here, and it is going to stop my virtual machine for a short time. So if you're going to be migrating, just make sure that you're doing your migration during an off time. Right? So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out to you. Now we're not going to sit here and wait for this entire process to complete, because it might take a little bit. But I want to show you that it's a really easy process to do. So if you are ready to move over to a managed disk scenario and let Azure do the worrying and wrestling for all of that, it's literally a button push away for you. Right? As long as you're cool with losing some connectivity for just a little bit while the machine reboots and they do all the configuration to allow for managed disks for it, you should be good to go. All right, so that's a quick glance at virtual disk migration, and so it's very easy to do. Again, all these really fun things in the news here. I wanted to give you some quick hits and some things that could give you some fast successes in a very short amount of time. The last one is another fun and exciting thing, automated startup and shutdown. Now, most of you are familiar with the idea that in Azure, you have the capability to only pay for what you use, right? Right. So why would you want to why do you want to pay for machines that are not being in use overnight or, over certain times? So we now have, this is, by the way, it's always been possible to script using Azure Automation. However, we now have a built-in module in Azure Automation specifically just for this purpose. Okay? So this is going to save a lot of folks probably a significant amount of money, chances are. So I'm going to bounce back over here into Azure. You'll notice here, this machine's still rebooting. But we're going to go into Azure Automation. And so let's just bounce over here to it. We go into my automation account, which I think I am anyway. There it is. All right, so here I've got an automation account all ready to go. It's called Alien Puppet, right? And then I can scroll on down here into related resources over here in this configuration column and click on the Start Stop VM button. And then from here, I can actually enable this solution, and I can make modifications to my machines from here. Okay? Now, again, this is something that I just want to give you a quick hit, and we'll fall too far down the rabbit hole on this one, but I want you to be aware that this is now available for you. Very easy to implement and very easy to tweak too. All right, so I can go ahead and click on Create. And now I do need to create a new OMS workspace, to provide this and provide an automation account and then set up the parameters for it. So there's a variety of steps in here. If you like this idea, maybe we'll do the demo for this one next month. But for right now, I just wanted to give you a quick glance at it and let you know that this exists. Really easy to implement. Jump into your portal and start playing with it on some basic machines. Maybe not on your major league production machines, but on machines that maybe you don't need to have running all the time, right? So, save you some cash. Save you some cash. All right, so that's what we have for in the news for this particular round. Next up, we're going to do a new school demo, and we're going to be tackling the issue of legacy code and bringing it into an Azure web app. Now, sometimes in my sessions, I'll have folks who are brand new to Azure and don't have a lot of experience with it. So real quick, let me talk to you about the capabilities of a web app. At the end of the day, web apps are web hosting, okay? And so it's not your daddy's HostGator account or GoDaddy account or any other kind of account that we've really seen. This is high-end, high-class web hosting that is enterprise ready from the get-go. And it's very, very scalable. It's something that you can do fast and easy. And you can take your existing code, chances are, if it's a very traditional .NET or PHP application, and even if you have like traditional HTML code, you can toss it into an Azure web app really, really quickly. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do this from start to finish. So we're going to go with the assumption that you have some code, all right, from an old school app of some sort, and you want to see if you can get it into Azure, into an up and running, so that it's up and running. All right, so we're going to stop sharing this. We're going to end, because you know what, there's a lot of shops that have legacy code, right? And they need to be able to get it up and going over in Azure. So we're going to create a web app from scratch, okay? And then I'm going to load a legacy website that I have, actually. It's an old website that I had laying around. I actually have it hosted in GitHub, and I'll talk to you about GitHub very briefly in just a bit. But there's lots of different ways you can get your code into the web app. All right, we're going to use GitHub because it's one of the fastest and easiest ways, because I already got it in there, right? And I've did a little demonstration literally from coast to coast. And so, so we're going to go ahead and walk through this real quick. I'm going to create this web app here real fast, and I'm going to call this guy Legacy. Let's see, nope, that's not available. So let's try Legacy 1. Oh yeah, that's available. Okay, cool. So we're going to create this website, legacy1.azurewebsites.net. Okay? And that's going to be, so the name does need to be unique in all the universe, because this is going to have a public DNS entry. All right, so I'm going to use my current subscription. I'm going to create a new resource group for this, because then I'm going to go ahead and mark this as Alien 2, just so I know that I just use this for demo purposes. I'm going to stick with a Windows operating system for this time around, although the application that I have could run on actually Linux just fine too. But I'm going to go take a look at the price and the power next. Now, for the app service plan, which is basically the underlying resources that are going to power your website, I'm going to create a new app service, and I'm going to call this Alien Service Plan. There we go. I'll host it. Yeah, Central US, that's good. And now the pricing tier. Here's something that's fun about web apps. There is a free tier, by the way, so you can test your application code to see if it's going to run at all in Azure. Okay, so this is a good place to start. It doesn't cost you literally anything, right, except for your time. And then we also have, of course, we can scale at any time. You can scale at any time. You can move into the shared, you can move into the basic, you can move into the higher level production, and even the higher end isolated iterations. So if you start off low, or if you start off high, and you're like, whoops, that's not what we need to do, that's cool. You can always scale back down. Now I'm going to stick with the free tier, all right, for this one. So we're just going to go with that for the time being, and I'm going to click on Create. Now you notice here that what am I doing all this stuff? I'm doing all of this inside the portal, because again, I know I'm going to have different folks with different capabilities and different levels and different comfort levels with the command line. So all the stuff we're doing here, by the way, you could also do this via the command line if you'd like as well. But I'm just doing it in the portal because it makes for a prettier demo, right? So now, for those of you who are new to Azure too, by the way, and if you are very command line centric, I recommend using the portal as a way to learn about all the different functions and features. All right. Now it looks like my deployment has succeeded. That's awesome. I'm going to flip over here to the GitHub repo that I have, where this stuff lives at, by the way. Now this is a very basic legacy site, right? This is actually, if you go into it, this is actually even it's HTML, right? Now I got a few JavaScripts in here in the assets. So this is very, very basic. I think this is based off of like a Bootstrap template at some point in time. You know, this site is obviously not in action anymore. This is definitely in the legacy category. So I just want you to see that very quickly that I'm going to be able to take this code, I'm going to toss this into the resource that I just built. All right. So let's see here. We're done with the alien puppet, right? So let's get out of him, and I'm going to close these little blades, and we're going to go here into App Services. So Legacy 1 is running. It's up and going. I'm going to click on Legacy 1, And what I'm going to do here is, you'll see here, I've got the URL hanging out right here. So if I want to click on it, I could pop open the placeholder page just to make sure it's up and going. All right, looks great. Everything's real, it's all Snow White walking down the yellow brick road with rainbows and unicorns so far. So now let's integrate with GitHub. Okay? Now, there's all kinds of different ways to get your data into Azure. Right? You can use FTP. So if you're a FileZilla, purist, that's totally cool. You can totally use FileZilla to FTP your stuff up, or like WinFTP or Coffee Cup FTP or whatever. All right, it is all good. But you can also use Visual Studio Team Services, OneDrive. You can use a local Git repository, Bitbucket, even Dropbox. So if you want to throw your code into Dropbox and use that as your deployment tool, you can. We also have the option to deploy to other repositories too. We're going to stick with GitHub for this short demo here. And so now in GitHub, what we need to do is we need to sign in. Okay, so now I'm already signed in with my GitHub account. So basically, you sign in with your username and password. That's all you got to do. Okay. So I'm already signed in, as you can see here. If I wanted to sign in again, I could click on Change Account and I could sign in. But don't need to do that because I'm already in. So now I'm going to choose my project. I got a few repos in here because if you're cool, you call repositories repos, right? Because all the cool kids say repos. My code is actually here in this github.io directory, so I'm going to click on that. And now I get to choose a branch. Now, in mine, I really just threw this up as a demo kind of thing, so I only have the master branch running. That's all I have. I could set up a performance test, but I'll skip that for right now. So I'm just going to click on OK. And that's going to set up my deployment source and get my code out of GitHub. And that's by the way, it's also a very small site too. Okay? It's going to get my code out of the GitHub repo, make it available here to my fun and exciting Azure experiment. And so now I'm going to go ahead and close. I'm just going to go back here to overview. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to overview. And now for the moment of truth. Okay? So I'm going to click on this link, and I'm going to see if this will spin up that old legacy site that I posted up here. All right, so let's click on this, and let's find out. Survey says, yay, there it is. Look at those beautiful people. It's me and my wife, by the way. So I've got a nice little website in here, old legacy stuff in here. It's very static, not a lot of bells and whistles. Got a little JavaScript happening in here, but it's that fast and that easy to take your legacy code and post it up and get it into Azure. Okay? So hopefully that is very encouraging for those of you who have some legacy code. Now again, in terms of a lot of folks are starting to ask, okay, so what can I run? Okay, what can I run in this? So really quick, let's bounce over here into the application settings for this guy. Let me just show you real fast, okay? So .NET, yeah, check, right? This is a Microsoft product, right? So you can select your framework edition, but also nowadays we can also go PHP, you can go Python, you can go Java, and there's some other ways you can get some other iterations as well in here. So, I get quite a bit of fun stuff in here that a lot of people don't even realize. It's just ready to go. Node.js. I mean, we can do all kinds of fun stuff with a web app. And again, you can scale this. You can scale it up. You can scale it down. We can have multiple instances of your website posted around the world, and we can load balance across those instances. I could go on and on, but we got other things we got to talk about. Right? So hopefully that makes you happy that you can take your legacy code and get it up and going literally in the time. I don't know, how long did it take us to do that? Like 5 minutes? Right? So if you got the code, right, and you get it into Azure, any one of those ways, and I didn't even show you the FTP way, right? That's just as easy. You just got to set up the FTP login, the username and password, the credentials, and then you FTP it like you would FTP into any other website ever. Right? So So there we have a quickie demo about how to bring legacy code into an Azure web app. Fast and easy, without any muss or fuss. And assuming that that your code won't blow up in your face. And again, you use that free tier to try it. Use that free tier to try it, and then go from there. Okay, so next up is a little section that we're calling Ask the Professor. So, as most of you know, SQL Server 2008, Server 2008 R2, support's coming to an end. Like all good things, right? All good things. It's coming to an end very quickly, right? So we're talking like 2019 and 2020. So within the next, well, for one of them, year, the other one 2 years, extended support. Basically, there will be no more security updates, right, for these. So there's been a number of folks that have said, what do I do? I have applications running on these things, right? And I need these things. So now, of course, you can let it ride, right? You can just let it run. I mean, let's get real. We know, you and I both know, that there's folks still running like Windows XP and Windows 2000 and even some shops Windows NT, right? I mean, some folks are just like, hey, you know what? It's running, it's semi-safe, so let's just let it run. But there's some options, okay? If you're looking at keeping the applications up and going, keeping them running, here's a couple of things to consider. Okay? First of all, if you migrate the virtual machines over to Azure, you'll get 3 more years of free extended security updates. Okay? So that by itself buys you 3 more years of runtime, secure runtime, right? So because you get security updates for free. It doesn't cost you anything extra if you will migrate those rascals over to Azure. Now, as always, you should always double check and see and see what the costing for that would be. Use the Azure calculator. If you haven't visited the Azure calculator lately, it hasn't changed a lot, but certainly make sure that you have an idea of what that's going to cost you. Right? Make sure you have an idea of what that's going to cost you. So that by itself might be worth the price of admission right here. Right? And, for this one. So, but then we have another option though. We've got another option for you in Azure. And this might be even more exciting for some of you. Right? Now, by the way, taking an existing server, popping it into Azure, doing kind of a lift and shift kind of thing, is an absolute possibility. Okay? So you can do that with your SQL Server 2008 boxes running on Server 2008 R2. Totally cool. But just so you know, we have an alternate option for your SQL Server. Okay? So for SQL Server, you could migrate your database running in SQL Server 2008 on-prem to a new thing, well, a relatively new thing. It's called Azure SQL Database Managed Instance. Now this is currently in preview, by the way. So it means that they're it's working, it's good, but they're still just making sure that everything is cool, right? So it's coming to what we call general availability later this year. And when we say general availability, we mean, hey, this is good to go. You're ready to rock this. We're confident that this is good for production. Let her rip. Right? That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. Now, some advantages to moving this. First of all, you have no application code change needed for moving your SQL stuff over into this kind of instance. All right. Now, Azure SQL is a platform as a service SQL offering in Azure. Some of you are familiar with it, but the problem that a lot of folks have run into is that not every function in SQL Server on-prem is represented in Azure SQL. Okay? So Azure SQL as a platform as a service offering is really a subset of the full SQL capability. And so some shops like that's a deal killer. I can't move my stuff into Azure because I need all of the fun toys that a SQL Server on-prem gives to me. But Azure SQL Database Managed Instance, though, gives you near 100% compatibility with on-prem SQL Server. Right? So the differences are going to be so slight that we're good in saying near 100%. Right? Then also near zero downtime with a new thing called Data Migration Service. So getting your data off of your SQL Server on-prem and pushing it up into Azure, into a SQL Database Managed Instance, cool. They're not gonna have to take downtime for that either. Now, this is a fully managed database as a service, and it has SLAs, and you don't have to fight with the patching, version updates, any of that. Okay, that's all done for you because this is part of that platform as a service offering that is designed to allow you to work with and pay attention to the details that matter and be done with the day-to-day little details, little nagging details that we've had to fight with, like doing patching, right? That's all taken care of for you. And also, you don't have to do any future upgrades. Now let's just let that sink in for just a second, shall we? Is that zen? I mean, is that awesome? I mean, you don't have to worry about trying to take your SQL Server 2008 stuff and get it up to the latest and greatest edition because it's good to run on a database managed instance. Now, also, if you have software assurance, you can exchange your current licenses for discounted rates as well. So that's fun, right? So for those of you who are SQL Server folks, I'll be posting this link right into the chat box right now so that you can investigate further. But there's options. Okay, there's options. If you've got, if you've got the stuff in, because I know there's a lot of folks that have a lot of stuff in these older editions of SQL and running on Server 2008 R2, and they're like, dude, it's been running for a long time. I ain't messing with it. I don't want to mess with it, but now all of a sudden I have to, right? So we got some options for you to look at and to potentially take advantage of, either in the infrastructure or platform as a service a little bit later on this year. And the reason why I brought this up now is that because this is going to become available to you in Q4, now's the time to start thinking about that and planning for that, right? So, okay. Now, for this, like I said earlier, for this particular section, and really this entire program that we're doing monthly, if you'd like to submit questions to us for this, you can email azureprof@directionstraining.com and tell us about what you'd like to see. Email us your questions. Email us your issues. Email us the stuff that you think that other folks might like to see too. Email us, how you'd like to see, and so we can tailor and manage this program and creating something that is something that you're really looking forward to every month. And that's what we want to really craft for you. Okay? So again, azureprof@directionstraining.com. I'm going to toss that into the chat box here, so you can get that and toss that into your contacts list if you want to. So that way, whenever you have something in Azure you got a question about or whatever it is, you can just pop open a new email for it and let us know. Talk to us. Let us know how we can help you in this monthly session. Okay? All right. Now, tips and tricks. So just as we're starting to bring this on in for a landing, so we're doing a little spotlight on storage and free training, right, in this particular section. So two items here that I think that one of which is going to be, I think one or the other is going to get you excited. Okay, at least I think so. Anyway, so the first thing is a free tool that will allow you to manipulate the stuff that you have in your storage accounts. So Azure Storage Explorer is a free downloadable from Azure, and so it allows you to work with your files, blobs, queues, tables, and also Cosmos DB and Data Lake. Now here's something that a lot of folks didn't see coming, but it's actually now also available for Linux and what? What? Mac operating system. Well, wonders never cease, right? So this is available across platform. Of course, it's available for Windows too. But if you have any Linux or Mac lovers in your space, Cool. They're invited. Okay? This is a new era in Microsoft land because we're not only just Microsoft-centric anymore. It's just not Microsoft, Microsoft, Microsoft. You know, so much of what Microsoft has been doing is they've been opening the sandbox for all the other kids to come in. And so that's kind of fun. But I think the new thing that I want to tell you about, you might have been familiar with Storage Explorer already. And by the way, there's also a new preview version of this right in the portal. Just FYI, if you haven't looked for it, go into the portal and take a look for it. But there is a preview version in the portal of Storage Explorer. Now, some of you like to have these utilities sitting on your desktop. I get it. I've been in tech for, it's weird to say, but 20 plus years now. This is, I think, I'm coming up on my 21st year in technology. It's weird, man. It's totally weird, but it's true. And I've come to, I love FileZilla, and I use it forever and for a very long time. But I don't do a lot of FTP now, and Storage Explorer does, by the way, operate over HTTPS. Right? So it's very easy to use, but it's a very familiar experience for those of us who've been in the industry for a long while. And my guess is that's probably most of you watching. Then that's going to give us a nice, comfortable experience to upload, download, manipulate, and work with all of these different types of items in our storage accounts. Okay, so pretty wickedly cool. So check that out if you haven't already. And then also, there are free immersions. We call them immersions. They're really interesting training sessions. A lot of people have been raving about them. And by the way, I do some of them. If you go to this page, I'll be tossing this into the chat box momentarily here. But it's a lot of folks really like it because there's a lot of interaction, and it's you get a hands-on Azure account to play with and play in. For the session, and about 4 hours after the session too, by the way. So free Azure time to come over and join us. And so again, I teach the infrastructure and it's a managed Azure security and the managing infrastructure items. Then my colleagues teach all of the other stuff. So they're lots of fun. They're only 3 hours, so you don't have to block out like an entire week to do training. You don't have to block out an entire day. Just 3 hours. Just 3 hours. So they go from 9 to 12 Central Standard Time, and then 1 to 4 Central Standard Time. And you do, like I said, you get free Azure time and free time to play during as well as after that session. So yeah, so come out and join us. Anytime you like. A lot of the early sessions in August are already filled up, by the way. So now if you want to get in, we're kind of pushing into September now for the sign-ups. But again, they're free. Doesn't cost you anything. Go do them. So they're lots of fun, I promise. All right. So anyway, so there's a couple of tips and tricks. So wow, I'm actually ahead of time. So that's pretty awesome. So last but not least, I want to talk to you about kind of the after party for this program. We're going to have a site where we're going to be posting the recordings of these sessions every month, as well as all the links to all the different resources that I talk about and I post. So if you're sitting in a meeting, you're like, oh man, I know we talked about that in the Azure program. Let me go, well, where is that? And maybe you didn't copy the link, or maybe I was too busy talking, I didn't post a link, or whatever it is. You'll have access to all that stuff in the after party site, coming soon for subscribers. So for those of you who are subscribing, that will be on the way shortly. And for those of you who are here in preview mode, awesome. If you'd like to sign up, then you'll also have access to the recordings, as well as all of the resources, and maybe occasionally a couple of extra bonuses that we don't talk about in the session that I just think you might need to know about and might like. Right? So all of that stuff will be in a site that you'll be emailed about later on. Okay? So we have that. I just got a question in from a private chat. How about the songs? Yes, I will post the URLs to the songs as well, by the way. So the songs are provided to us from CC Mixter. It's a very cool site with independent artists. And so for those of you who dig the tunes, awesome. I'll provide the tunes for you too. All right. I think that everything should be a little mini festival. But I'm from Austin, Texas, so of course I think that, right? So, okay, my friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me. To learn more, give a shout to your account executive. Go bounce over to www.directionstraining.com, and hopefully I'll be able to hang out with you again next month.